everybody. This is James on Praagh, and welcome to Life After Death and Beyond with my good friend Kelly White. Hello,
Hi,
Kelly.
Hi, James. Hi, everybody.
Everyone. Tonight we have a very special guest. I know everyone is special, but this guest I've known for many, many years, and he is a world leader, if you will, in the world of meditation and wellness. So I'm reading a little bit of his biography. Davidji has taught millions of people around the world to heal their hearts, plant powerful intentions, and manifest their dreams live. His grasp of time-tested solutions combined with real-world practical applications have helped people at every stage of life and circumstance find balance, heal deep wounds, and transform into the best versions of themselves. And I know because I did workshops with Dave, and he's pretty incredible. Often referred to as the velvet voice of stillness, Davidji is the most prolific creator of guided meditations in the world. I think he said 1,700, 1,000 or 800 meditations he's written. And his more than 1,000, well, there you go, 1,000 guided meditations available on Insight Timer. And I'm just going to a little bit here. There's so much to read, so we don't want to get too much because we want to talk to David. After a 20-year career in business, finance, and mergers and acquisitions, Davidji began a new journey to wholeness, apprenticing for a decade under Drs. Deepak Chopra and David Simon, serving as the Chopra Center COO, lead educator, and then as the first dean of Chopra Center University, where he trained more than 300,000 people to meditate and certified more than 2,500 meditation teachers. He has since left the Chopra Center to teach the practical integration of stress management, mindful performance, meditation, and conscious choice making into our real-world modern-day experiences. For more than 15 years, Davidji has helped thousands of people around the world and continues to make better decisions, sleep better, enhance relationships, experience abundance, and live purposeful, driven lives. And there's so much more to his
Yes.
to meet him. So please, everybody, welcome Davidji. Hello, David.
Hi, David. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here with you guys.
So happy to have you tonight. And
Yeah,
for
like
people
a kindred soul.
you guys are soul brothers.
Yeah, we are.
We are.
We were having so much fun before the show. You were telling some great stories, you two.
Yeah.
Hopefully we haven't used all our great stories up.
Well, we're talking about a workshop that we did, and that was the one in Rancho Bernardo.
Yeah.
And you can share with the audience. I didn't remember that, so you just explained that to me earlier.
Yeah. Well, James and I had shows on Hay House Radio, and we live just miles from each other. And there was a period of time where James would join me and my mindful Morky, my LA rescue, Peaches the Buddha Princess,
Peaches the Buddha Princess,
inside the studio, and I would lead people in meditations, and then James would, we would take calls because we always took calls, and then people would call up, and James would do his magnificent, just cosmic work that he does. And he would sit there rubbing peaches and loving on peaches. And it was probably a little freaky and weird for James, but we were only sitting like 2 feet apart, but I would lean over even closer so I could stare, like what happens the moment before he begins his medium work? What happens like that millisecond right before he's suddenly talking to the dead? And there was a pattern interrupt. There was a break in the action. James obviously has mastered it over, 30 plus years, but there was this space. And I said, this guy is an intuitive meditation teacher. This guy has been teaching meditation, not calling it that, but you can't do his thing without getting still first. And even if it's just for a flicker of a second, he really, truly mastered that. So I had that show for 8 years, and James was on my show a bunch of times. We had such great times.
Other shows, yeah.
He would invite me on his show, then I would go on my show, and I'd always be carrying Peaches. And Louise Hay was a big fan of Peaches the Buddha Princess. Yeah. And then James was like, hey, why don't we do an event? And so we did this event in Rancho Bernardo, which is about 20 minutes east of both of us in the direction of Queens, where we're both from, Queens, New York. And
her brothers from a different mother. Yeah,
absolutely. And it was just so special. And I got the opportunity. I said to James, how do you want to do this? I'll come out and teach for an hour, and then you'll come out and teach for an hour. And James was like, no, let's sit side by side for the whole time for these 3 days. And I'd never done that with anyone. And it was so intimate. It was so powerful and so special. It really changed my life. And, so I got to sit next to James while he was helping people connect to dead relatives and dead children and dead parents, and just talk to other realms, and then train these people right there in front of us to like suddenly take our clairvoyance, our clairsentience, our clair whatever into the next level. So I'm such a fan of yours, James, and I'm
Well,
really
back at you,
grateful.
brother.
And
Because as I'm sitting next to you, I'm getting a lot from you, which you just share that light into
yeah, I
every
just
single
happen
person
to
that
have
loves
one of my favorite books here, just in
Power of
case.
love. Yeah.
Power of Love. And why is this book so relevant and so powerful? We're coming up like on a 9-year anniversary of this book, and as I was just leafing through it today, James has a meditation inserted into every single chapter of this book. So you think it's like all about love, and he sort of like weaves ever so effortlessly meditation into all the different components. And I was so touched by that. And I know James sometimes says, maybe I should, be teaching people to meditate. Well, you have been doing that since the day you first started speaking, James. You are a meditation master, and I'm so grateful that we are
Well, you've
so
inspired me,
closely
David.
connected.
That book was written after we met. So those meditations was after I met you,
It's
the
great.
god of the meditation world. So, would you share with everybody the story you have about going to work, the 9/11 story?
Oh, sure. Well,
Great.
as I mentioned, I'm from New York, and so I lived there and worked there for many, many years, and I worked actually for a period of time on the 82nd floor of Tower 2 of the World Trade Center. And a few months before 9/11, I was invited by someone to leave my company and go to their company. So that person essentially saved my life. Also created some, survivor's remorse in that process as well. But in the wake of 9/11, as I was sitting with all this sadness and questioning and deep trying to figure out like what's this all about? What is life all about? Who am I? What's the meaning of existence? I was walking past a row of cardboard boxes in southern Manhattan that people were living in. And I walked past this particular box, and suddenly a hand reached out and grabbed my pant leg, and this person really pulled me in and leaned up into me. He had these blue crystalline eyes, and he suddenly made this like deafening eye contact and said, "What's going to be on your tombstone?" And it's a fairly reflective question. What's going to be on your tombstone? Hadn't thought about it. Certainly in the wake of all this internal devastation that I was feeling. And I call these butterfly moments. As soon as he said that to me, suddenly all the noise of New York stopped. There were no cars. There were no people. There were no footsteps. There were no horns honking. It was total silence. It was me and this being. I don't know if this was God speaking to me or the voice of God speaking to me through this person, or if I have no idea. But in those moments, which seemed like hours, that he held me in there, we like suddenly transferred information back and forth without speaking. There were feelings, there were emotions. I started crying. My heart started palpitating. I was so fully present. This was the only moment in existence. And then he, I reached into my pocket because I figured, oh, this person wants me to give them some money. And he pinned my hand against my pocket. And he said, "This isn't about money. The answers are in the stars." And then he vanished back into his box, and my knees were weak and I could barely contain myself. I was sobbing. I sat down on the stairs of an apartment building like 20 feet away, replaying that question. What is going to be on my tombstone? Why am I here? What's the whole point of all of this? And it hit me so deeply. I've had other butterfly moments since then, and I'm sure we all have had them in some way, where everything just stops and the message, it's like an Alan Watts moment. Suddenly, poof, the message comes in. And he always says, when you get the message, you can hang up the phone now. because you don't stay in the line anymore. You got it. It's okay. And that it touched me at such a deep level. I went home and mentioned this to my wife, and she was like, you need to quit your job and you need to head off to Oxford, England. There's this guy, Deepak Chopra. He's teaching a meditation retreat. And I know you meditated back when you were a kid, but this is really what you need right now. So I'm fairly obedient. I quit my job and headed off to Oxford, England. And there was supposed to be like 3,000 people at this event, but it was in the wake of 9/11. Nobody was flying. So there were 50 of us instead of 3,000 of us. And it was so intimate and so powerful. We were meditating for like 3, 4, 5 hours a day. And on day 3, my heart, which had been in such pain, it was like a white linen cloth that had been submerged in black India ink, such agony inside of me. But each day of meditation, it felt like draping that cloth through a rushing stream and cleansing it, and all the blackness and darkness was being woven out of it until it was like lighter and returning to its original state. And for the first time, maybe in 20 years, I felt joy. And I was like, wow, this is joy. This is unbelievable. And so I do what you do when you hang out with Deepak Chopra for a week, instantly headed off to India in search of the guru. What else are you supposed to do? And traveled around India for like 6 months in search of the guru. I went high into the Himalayas, searching for His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. He wasn't there that week. And then I went to the south of India, looking for answers. I was meditating and practicing yoga and praying in the temples and bathing in the Ganges and doing all that stuff. And then there was that moment where I was reading the ancient text, the Bhagavad Gita, and I'd read this passage maybe 100 times, and it's chapter 2, verse 48 of the Bhagavad Gita, which says, Yoga sta kuru karmani. How am I supposed to live my life? Yoga sta kuru karmani. Establish yourself in the present moment and then perform action. And that is the secret to everything. It was like a lightning bolt. It hit me. I raced home. Well, if you can race home from India, I raced to the bus station and then waited 2 days for a bus to come. Then the bus took 4 days to get to Mumbai. And then I sat in the airport for 20 hours waiting for my flight. So that's rushing home from India, but then I got home and all was clear to me. And all I did was meditate every morning, every afternoon, every day. And I would invite my friends over to watch me meditate. I wasn't teaching them to meditate. I was like, check it out. I'm going to just sit here for an hour and do nothing. And at a certain point, they came over and said, we haven't come here to watch you meditate. This is an intervention. Okay. All you do is sit around and meditate, and you need to do something with it.
Have people thought that you had lost your mind?
Everyone, including every single family member and anyone I'd ever met in my life, thought that I had lost my mind. And they're like, all you do is do this, close your eyes and do nothing. And I said, yeah, well, yoga sta kuru karmani. They said, exactly. Yoga sta, establish yourself in the present moment. But there's that second part, kuru karmani, then perform action. You're not performing the action. You're just sitting there doing nothing. So if you really want to learn, and if you really want to do something, why don't you learn to teach people to meditate as well? And so I headed out to California to visit Deepak, who had a center here at the time. And I showed up for the workshop. There were supposed to be 500 people. There were 30 of us. And I never left. It was at that workshop that I was invited to become the COO and the lead educator. And I was like, wow, how's that happen? And the way it happens is Deepak said, would you like to be our COO? And I was like, yes. And that's how it happens. And I didn't ask, how much are you paying me? Because at the time it was free. And I didn't say, what are the hours? I didn't say anything. I said, okay. I said, but I'll go back to New York and each week I'll phone in what you're supposed to do. And then at the end of the week, I'll check in to see that you've complied with all of my requests. And he was like, no, that's not going to work. You need to stay here and live here and breathe the air. You need to live in this space. And so I said, okay. So that's my low barrier to entry. Just keep saying yes until the magnificent moment unfolds. Wow. And so I got the opportunity to, ultimately I became the dean of Chopra Center University. I apprenticed under him for 10 years. Halfway through, I started my Hay House Radio gig, and the rest is magic. As James Van Praagh has always said, people come into your life for a season, a reason, or a lifetime.
True.
And that's where I met James. So
Yes.
how amazing is that? And here we are.
And here we are. The rest is history, as they say.
Right. So I tell people, you don't need to blow up your life if it's not working. You don't need to blow up your life and head off to India and just quit your job and quit everything. I've already done that for you. I've taken that hit. So instead, how about, since I've done that and probably might have chosen differently, we can just cultivate a meditation practice and get the same benefits without suddenly throwing everything to the wind.
What's
Kelly,
a
I
way
know you have
that
some questions.
what's a way that people can begin a meditation practice if they've never done this before?
If you've never meditated before, and there's 8 billion people on the planet, there's probably 7.5 billion who've never meditated before. Here's an easy way for us to start. And if you've said, oh, I have too many thoughts, or, oh, it doesn't work for me, or, oh, I'm a high achiever, or, oh, I don't have the time. Those are traditional reasons why people don't. I believe you just haven't found the one. You just haven't found the technique. And so here's an easy, starting point. Think of something that's been bothering you for the last couple of days. Don't go past a couple of days. Don't go too deep. This isn't therapy. But just someone said they were going to do something, they didn't, or something was supposed to happen, it didn't, and you were irritated. You're a little, disturbed or distressed by it in some way. And now close your eyes and through your nose, take a long, slow, deep breath and watch that breath. And when it gets to your belly, hold it there and keep holding it there and keep watching it and keep observing it as it sits in your belly. And now release that breath and watch it as it moves up your chest, out through your mouth. Keep watching it, keep observing it, keep exhaling out, and allow that breath to dissipate into the ether. And now open your eyes, breathe normally. That was 16 seconds. And so if you were playing along, for those 16 seconds, you are not in the past and you are not in the future. You were fully present. In fact, if you were playing along for those 16 seconds, you weren't thinking about that thing that I just asked you to think about. And I didn't say stop thinking about it. I just said close your eyes and watch your breath. So we learn a couple of things. Number one, we learn that we can direct our attention and energy anywhere we want in any given moment. We don't have to sit with the thoughts that are in us, and we don't have to sit with the circumstance. We get to redirect. Number two, what we did was introduce a pattern interrupt. It's a break in the action. It's a break between, just like TV shows have commercials and movies back in the day had intermissions. This is our mini pattern interrupt. It's our brain taking a breath. And the third thing we learned is, this is one of the secrets of meditation, the object of our attention. As long as we have some kind of object of our attention, so that we can, because we're going to drift away. We have 60,000 to 80,000 thoughts a day. That's a lot of thoughts. It's a thought every 1.2 seconds. They're coming. We're going to hear sounds. We're going to have physical sensations. As long as we have an object of our attention, an anchor that we can just gently keep drifting back to, then that's how we truly cultivate. Hello, look at all these beautiful comments that are popping in. How sweet. That's amazing. That's great. Thank you so much for your kind words. So if you've never meditated before, guess what? Now you have. It was a short one, a 16-second one, and we'll do one a little later. But that's an opportunity. We realize what an easy access point, and we all have the ability to practice 16 seconds. I refer to this as 16 seconds to clarity. We could do it while we're driving. Don't close your eyes, of course, during that. We can do it while we're at the table with someone who's poking us. We can do it in turbulent times. Some would say these are turbulent times or uncertain times. Yeah, these last 4 years, we've rocked some really wild, unexpected, and turbulent times, and probably for several thousand years before that. So since we're always in uncertain times and always in turbulent times, we can cultivate ourselves being the calm amidst that chaos.
It's great.
It's wonderful.
Just great.
How do people, Davidji, how do people sabotage themselves?
Good question.
Well, number one, they don't recognize their divine nature. I mean, we can go back to the ancient teachings, even going back to the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. I just happen to have a copy lying around here. That's 2,000 years ago. And Patanjali instructed us on meditation 2,000 years ago, the great yogic sage. He said the second sutra out of 196 sutras, the second sutra, he says, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Oneness is the progressive quieting of the fluctuations of the mind. And then there's that next sutra right after that, which no one pays attention to necessarily, but it's Tara Drastus Farupe Avastanam, which means then the seer abides in its true nature. So if we can simply just progressively quiet the fluctuations of our mind, we can hear the whispers in our heart, the whispers of God. And so why do we self-sabotage? Because we don't see ourselves as having either the thumbprint of God or being delivered here despite all improbabilities and all impossibilities, that here we are breathing life, incarnated as humans for the span of a lifetime. This is unbelievable. And so a lot of times, it's a self-esteem thing. I'm not worthy of this, so I'll blow it up. I'm not worthy of this relationship. I'm not worthy of someone who adores me. I don't even adore me. I'm not worthy of this job. I wouldn't hire myself. It's all those kind of things. And if we can connect to that stillness and silence that rests within, that's where the soul rests. That's where that's where love rests. That's where probably the foundational element of every single question we could ever ask. That's where the answers lie. And so we self-sabotage ourselves because we don't trust our heart.
And David, a question for you. There's so many meditations, but let's say a forgiveness meditation, or someone has resentment, or someone cannot forgive someone who's passed over. Is there a certain type of meditation about forgiveness or resentment or guilt, or how would you deal with that?
I think the four main components that I have really dedicated most of my life to are kindness, compassion, forgiveness, and love. Just those four: kindness, compassion, forgiveness, and love. And these the ancient wisdom teachings tell us, going all the way back to the Buddha 2,600 years ago, the ancient teachings tell us that we need to apply these things first before we offer them to someone else. So if we're acting kind, but we're not being kind to ourselves, it's an act. And how long can you hold that pose? And so we see these things as being selfish, or, I need to serve others rather than serve myself. But if you serve others and don't take care of yourself, ultimately you'll start to resent those others that you're serving. The secret and the key is to do what you love, do what you like to do what you're good at, and serve other people in the process. And then everyone's satisfied. Everyone's thrilled in those moments. And sometimes we're like, yeah, but I got to make money too. It's like, okay, well, find a job that you like to show up for. So many people don't like their jobs. And sometimes we're like, yeah, I just got to take this hit and do this thing. And like, okay, well, you could certainly cultivate something on the side. You could cultivate a forgiveness practice. In addition to that, you could show up and say, I'm just going to be kinder to myself every day that I'm in this job that I'm not really feeling fulfilled in. So as long as we can keep kindness, compassion, forgiveness, and love in heavy rotation in our internal playlist, then it doesn't matter where we are, and it doesn't matter who we're with or who we're not with, because we can be whole just being by ourselves. And if we can be whole being by ourselves, we can certainly be whole in some job that we don't love, and in some relationship. You know what they say about relationships? If you fall in love with yourself, you could fall in love with anybody. It doesn't matter. That person, he would be like, no, but they're not my soulmate. I have to keep waiting. Okay, what are you waiting for though? How about allow someone to adore you, allow someone to love you, in addition to you loving yourself. And then you become a little more magnetic and you start attracting, law of attraction stuff. You just start attracting people. If you walk out there broken, what are you attracting? Predators and fixers. That's not really who we're looking for in our life. if we say, oh, you don't understand how horrible my life is, well, then what are you going to attract in that? But if you say, oh my God, I am so in love with myself today. Do you know how amazing I am? It's like Louise Hayes's mirror work. Can we look in the mirror and say, you're beautiful. You're doing a great job. And I love you. I would suggest everyone to record that on their phone and then just play it. It works great, especially if you play it in elevators. I've done that a bunch of times. Suddenly, everyone's just standing in a crowded elevator, and this voice comes out. You're beautiful. You're doing a great job, and I love you. It's impossible for anyone to maintain like a serious, what was that? I'm not going to smile at that. Everyone bursts into a giant grin.
Yeah, and I think if one lives with passion, like compassion, Latin, with passion, and you live your passion, as you say, Dave, it's magnetic, it's an energy, and people want to have that. They do have it, but they don't recognize it sometimes. So you give them that possibility to, it's okay, the permission to be passionate, to love themselves. I love the word passion. It's fabulous.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's compassion is with that. That's what compassion is so powerful. There can't be compassion without passion.
Yeah.
You have to flow that in. And really, what is that? It's your heart. It all comes back to your heart. It all comes back to the amazing teachings in JVP's The Power of Love. James has written so many books, but this one always
it's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorite ones. I haven't been able to write since then because I always want to have something that's a good one. I might do my biography next, but that's autobiography. But it's hard to beat The Power of Love for me.
Well, that's the whole thing, James. You and I write because of something in our heart that makes us want to say something or tell something or share something. And you're just percolating right now. So have fun in percolation mode, marination mode, and
in teaching mode.
Yeah, right. And but that book, your deep devotion to love. There's a word in Sanskrit, bhakti, Bhakti, and it means devotional love, and you flow that. And I'm just so, I'm so in awe and so grateful.
Cry, David. Don't do that. You've done that before. Terrible in workshops. I'm going to cry like a baby. A question for you, David. When you find around someone who's just like, whether it's someone that you're just meeting, the season reason like just meeting them, or a friend of a friend, or whatever it might be, that they're very, very negative, or they're negative. What do you call? Yeah. What do you do then with that energy that was very negative? And I slip into observation mode. But how would you deal with that?
Right. Well, another phrase for observation mode is like being the silent witness. But part of that is also witnessing yourself. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, comes home after a hard day's work and says to whomever's there, like, you wouldn't believe these toxic people that I had to hang out with today. Like I don't think that conversation's, maybe he's rolled an eye, maybe he's rolled one eye, I don't even think he's rolled both eyes. But one of the great teachings of Thich Nhat Hanh, the great Vietnamese Buddhist teacher, is that before you change your relationship with someone, you need to change that relationship with them internally, inside of you. And so we all have a Debbie Downer, or we all have a buzzkill person in our life, where you say like, oh my God, I just found the most amazing chocolates, I'm lactose intolerant. Oh, I just found, here's a great place for us to hang out and watch the sunset. If you stare at the sun, it's going to burn out your retinas. We all have that person in our life who's just, commenting or critiquing virtually everything that we can do. And I think the answer is that why is that person doing that? That person has not received enough love. Mm-hmm. So we can either be like everyone else who's not giving that person love, or we can just surprise them out of nowhere and say, oh my God, I love you so much. You're the person I want to watch that sunset with. If I could burn out my corneas with anyone, it would be you side by side with me. And if we can start to make those shifts inside of ourselves, then it's going to be a lot easier to allow that out. But, there's always the rule of vampires, which, James is the creator of The Ghost Whisperer, but another show that was really of that same ilk was Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And we know the rule of vampires. Vampires cannot enter your house unless you invite them in. You can have the door wide open, and a vampire cannot enter unless you invite them in. This is different for zombies. Zombies, you got to close the door, because zombies, you don't need to invite them. They're busting down the door, but not vampires. So who shall we invite into our head? We invite people into our head we would never invite into our homes. So how much time do we want to spend with people who aren't front row rooting for us, or at least rooting for our success? We could have different belief systems, different politics, but are they rooting for me to succeed? If that's the case, bring them in. And if someone's not rooting for you, even if you're related to them, you could push them. I call this the front row. Think of yourself on the stage and you're looking out into the theater and everyone's applauding you. It's your big night. Except you look down into the front row, and those are the people who have the special tickets, and everyone's got flowers and bouquets and standing ovation, except that these three people sitting down, sitting on their hands. They're like waiting for the next act or whatever it is. Those are we need to move those people back a few rows in our life. So as we get really clear on who's in our front row, if someone's not nourishing or rooting for you, we get to move them back a few rows. And remember the rule of vampires. It's been in existence for long, since Bela Lugosi times. Bottom line, we get to choose how do we bring people into our life. And if someone's always buzz killing us, let's see if we can make the shift internally first and then show up. And when we see that person next, realize this is a person who's probably been in pain for a very, very long time, either not being seen or not being heard or not being listened to. And maybe if I give them that, not to pander, but out of kindness, compassion, forgiveness, and love, maybe if I offered them that, maybe they'll see that I'm the one person different in their whole world. They buzzkill the entire world, but when they're with me, they feel safer. And they can suddenly see the light in things as opposed to only the darkness. But I think it's an internal journey. And I think meditation is a foundational element of that.
But David, I think it's also with that holding the space for that individual, the possibilities, whether it's bringing that light, that awareness, that love, it's having that space and helping them maybe to recognize it, if you want to say discover it, and be that which you want to help them with. So it's creating that space for them to feel safe and vulnerable, I guess you could say too, because a lot of these people have not been vulnerable. They're guarding themselves. So that's a part of it, I think.
I think that's most people, right? Most of us have walked around especially who has not had their heart broken. So once you've had your heart broken, like for the fifth time, you're a little resistant on letting somebody in that moment. Like, I know how horrible that feels. Why would I let it happen again? That's the hardest thing. Can we know that the heart has always held us and always protected us? And if we are willing to kindness, compassion, forgiveness, and love, maybe let the heart out there to love again, to forgive. And what they say in the world of finance, past performance is not indicative of future outcome. So just because your heart got broken, that doesn't mean it's going to be again, or that it's going to be. Or we realize, let me, I don't have to be guarded, but, let me, proceed more slowly through this new, but not like this, not blocking ourselves off. Because if you put up giant lead casing around your heart, nothing can get in, but nothing can get out also.
Exactly right.
Good point there. David, so many people have anxiety. What is a good way to work with anxiety?
Well, anxiety or anxiousness, it's really a physiological thing. We can say, I'm feeling anxious, but really what we're saying is, I'm feeling a little jangly. I'm feeling a little unstable here. I'm feeling a little nervous about some kind of outcome. So this is classic fight flight, but it's emotional fight flight. 10,000 years ago, we're all hardwired with the self-preservation mechanism because we were living in the woods or the jungle or someplace where if we heard a twig snap, we would suddenly go, it's a threat to my physiology. I better either run or get ready to fight. Well, fast forward 10,000 years, it's really not happening to us on a daily basis, but we've evolved. So now when someone challenges something we think we own, right? Anything we think we own, my stability, my safety, my health, my house, probably the bank owns it. My car, probably the bank owns it. There's a bunch of my kids. That's never happening. We definitely don't own them. That's just a total illusion. So whatever that process is, if we just keep, realizing, oh, okay, the reason I'm feeling anxious is because I'm feeling unsettled in this moment because my emotional fight-flight mechanism has kicked in, which means my heart's beating more rapidly, my breathing is more shallow and more rapid, my blood pressure is rising, cortisol is shooting into my body and preparing me to fight or run away emotionally, which is to be abrasive or aggressive with someone verbally, or to just shut down, talk to the hand, whatever. And so we have additional skill sets. So here's a really great technique. This is the sinoatrial node. I'm not going to get any more into medical science about this, but that's like a connector between the heart and the lungs and the vagus nerve. And it sends the message. It's a Louise Hay message. All is well. All is well in my world. Because the vagus nerve is constantly looking for danger or safety, 24/7, danger or safety. And then we start to respond, even though someone might have said, what? You like the Isley Brothers? I hate the Isley Brothers. And then suddenly, you get all worked up over that. So probably everyone on the planet has stress. Everyone on the planet has anxiety and anxiousness. So do this technique with me. We're going to breathe in and fill our lungs through our nose, and then we're going to top it off, like topping off your tank. And then we're going to exhale through our mouth with an audible sigh. And we're going to do it 3 times. I know it sounds weird, but it's going to instantly flatten the curve on anxiety, on stress, on all sorts of things. So let's try it together. 1, 2, 3. And now even top it off, and now let it go. One more time. Long, slow, deep breath in. Now top it off. And let that go. And one last time. Fill her up. Top it off. And let it go. And we have just sent a powerful message to our heart, lungs, and brain. Simmer down a little bit. Everything's okay right here. Everything is relaxed. So there are these in the moment, Kelly, these in the moment stress hacks and anxiety hacks. And we all have the power of our breath. So we can all do them. But that's, between 16 seconds and between this, fill her up, top her off. I don't even know what to call it. Some people call it 2-step breathing. I don't know. I just started doing it. Once I read about the science, it works instantly. Are everybody's a little more relaxed right now?
Totally.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
I like to top it off. I'm going to remember that. It was really great.
Right. Top it off. And all the people who are watching, everybody here is like totally chilled out and now like in a relaxing state. Amy says, I could listen to the 3 of you all day long. You're also amazing. Oh, Amy, you're amazing. Thank you for showing up.
David, I'm going to call that the egg cream.
James, I love naming things that are memorable. So I think that's great.
Because David and I are from
just
Queens,
like,
New York, where we got egg cream.
Just like create a little thing. Do the egg cream with JVP. I love that.
Wow. I can't even think of anything to ask you. I'm just in the moment of this.
That was such a very relaxing.
Right.
Usually a weekend workshop with David. It's pretty amazing. At the end, we're like, wow.
Yeah. When James and I had finished both of our workshops together, but when we were done, I couldn't even get in my car. It was like, heavily meditated. Do not drive or use a chainsaw or a leaf blower. Just sit. We were surrounded by angels. We were surrounded by dead people. My mother was in the room. My mother's been dead for over 30 years. It was just crazy. It was spectacular.
David, what would you think your mother would think about all of this now with you?
Well, my mother's here right now. The tougher part is my dad, who, James actually spoke about his dad. that he was a little skeptical of
Yeah.
James talking to dead people
Yeah.
until he died.
Right.
Yeah.
And then spoke to James pretty frequently
Yeah.
and said, I'm okay here.
Yeah.
I think, James, you said, I'm out of the quicksand.
He said, you got it right. You got it right. I'm alive. That's what exact words were.
Right. So my mother's here right now, and she always hangs out with me. She does not get tired because we got up at like 4:30 today, and my mom is always guiding me. My father, he's exactly like James. He's very, very proud of me, but there is no parent from Queens who's happy that their child is either talking to dead people or teaching people to close their eyes and watch their breath.
That's so true.
When are you going to get a real job, James? My father said to me once, "What are you going to do? Open up a philosophy shop?" And I went, "Exactly."
That's great. That's great. And David, I know a lot of people here are interested, but tell us a little bit about your teacher trainings that you're involved in right now, because you're heavily involved in the teacher training. What is that about, and what can people expect with that?
Yeah, well, my mission in life is to teach people to connect to the stillness and silence that rests within. And at a certain point, some people feel, and this is really my path. I had know it when my friend said, "You should learn to teach people meditation." My reply, I'm not kidding. My reply was, "I'm from Queens. We don't care about anyone else's meditation." Why would any New Yorker care about someone else's meditation? They only would care about their own. And they said, "Okay, forget the altruistic part. If you really want to learn something, learn to teach it." And I said, "I'll take that one. I'll do that one." And so it was so impactful for me. And I thought, well, I'll never end up teaching anyone. And then, of course, that turned into a whole life of teaching people. And so I teach people to connect to the stillness and silence that rests within through my meditation teacher training. It's not for the faint of heart. It's a 4-month program. It's 16 weeks, but it's all on demand. And so teaching people really to be a rock star meditator. And it's so funny, people who would have previously said, "I'm never going to talk to anyone or teach anyone or even mention that I'm a meditation teacher," magically, they suddenly say, "Oh, my cousin was having a really tough time and I use these techniques." Or, "Oh, I bumped into somebody in the airport and they were struggling because their flight got canceled." Like all that, suddenly we realize every moment is a teaching moment. So I teach that on a continuous basis, and people are surprised that, like, oh, I actually could be a certified meditation teacher, because if we look out there, most people are not doing that. And so I offer that training twice a year. And there's you could either attend it totally virtually and do the full 16 weeks just online, or you can come out and visit for the final week. And we do that in person. So right in the sweet spot of the universe, James, right? A stone's throw from where you live.
That's right. And David, you rent a house and people come to the house for the
Yeah,
weekend?
I've been renting the same house. I call it the meditation nest. People think I own it. No, it's like a $20 million house on the sand. So I only rent it for several weeks every fall and spring. But it's one of the most powerful things that I do. And we train people and we practice people and we explore the ancient wisdom teachings. And it's really it's not just a meditation teacher training, but it's really a transformational experience as well, emotionally and spiritually. So thank you for asking.
You're welcome. And I just got this hit as you were saying that, for all three of us that are present here, and many other people, the teachers, they just show that each one of us, the three of us, I can just talk, are just mirrors, and that we just reflect light to others. We reflect their light, and it kind of validation. We're just showing them their light. I don't know, I just got that hit, but does that make sense?
Yes. God, it's so powerful. All your hits are mic drop lines, James. That's what your next book
also, David, I just
your next book should be. Your next book should be all the James Van Praagh's greatest hits, and they're
oh, that's great. That's great. But as Kelly knows, Dave, we've done this show now for a long time. things just come through. And I think once we had Maggie, right, Kelly, the spirit guide of
Yeah.
her name? But
Yes.
things just come in. It's wonderful just to be open and explore the universe.
Someone asked me if I'm a fan of crystals. Which ones am I drawn to? I'm drawn to all crystals. But I just happen to have my 2 Lemurians right
Ooh.
here that I always have. I always keep a Ganesha. This is my technology Ganesha. So I always keep a Ganesha remover of obstacles right near my computer. And
I have one too right there.
Yeah, I do too.
and I always keep my Lemurian crystals around to keep guiding me towards the light. That's like my
The
thing.
same Lemurian.
Oh, I love that.
Oh,
How
yeah.
great is that? Way to go,
Love
Kelly.
it. Love it.
Yeah, so brilliant. These teachings, we get to do with them anything that we want. But I will say that there's all these activities in our life. Everything is an activity, even if we find it meditative, gardening and doing all sorts of other stuff, drying dishes, washing dishes, vacuuming, walking mindfully. But there's only one stillness. And so I believe if we can just take a little time every single day just to connect to that stillness and silence that rests within, we're going to awaken an aspect of ourselves that we haven't really given light to or given credence to. And so it's not that that's your portal to divine transformation. It is, oh, by the way. But it's not that you don't need to seek it for that. But how about maybe it makes you a better friend? Maybe it makes you a better partner. Maybe it makes you a better employer or boss or employee, or maybe it makes you just a better companion animal to your pet. Whatever that looks like to you. I believe that we transform the world by transforming ourselves. All external transformation, all the stuff we point at, and I wish that was different. We need to change that. And like all that stuff, I believe, think globally, but act locally. How locally? Your heart. Start with your heart. And so maybe we could do like a little mini meditation right here.
Great.
And I can guide us into that space.
Thank you, David.
Remember, everyone, comfort is queen. Always keep moving towards comfort. Always keep moving towards comfort. And you may hear, no, you need a rigid spine, or you need hand mudras, or you need to sit within full lotus. Those are all advanced techniques. We don't need that to connect to our heart. We never need to. So together, let's take a long, slow, deep breath in. And ever so gently let that go. With our next breath, let's breathe in through our eyelids. Allow your eyelids to ever so gently float closed and feel that soft, tender connection between your upper and your lower lids. And release that breath. And we're going to keep breathing in through our eyelids. But in the meantime, see if you can rest your hands on your heart, your sweet, tender heart. And we're going to breathe in through our eyelids. Such a tender connection. Feel that soft tenderness coming into you. Feel it go right down into your heart. And as you exhale, release that kind tenderness back out into the world. And essentially, we're just breathing in that kind tenderness through our eyelids, feeling it settle into our heart, and then flowing it effortlessly back out into the world. We're just conduits. We're conduits of love. We're conduits of energy. We're conduits of healing. We're conduits of transformation, conduits of abundance. Again, long, slow, deep breath in through our eyelids. Feel that tender connection, that soft connection. Your upper lid is resting so gently on your lower lid. Feel it, fill your heart with that same tenderness. And unconditionally flow it back out into the world. And let's just stay in this space, breathing in that tenderness, feeling it fill you, feeling it fill your heart, and flowing it back out. And now make a blessing on your heart right now. Some prayer or blessing or affirmation, just a sweet, kind, loving message that you would like to make to or with your heart right now. And see if you can follow that up with a commitment to your heart. I commit to honor you every day. I commit to trust you every day. I commit to nourish you every day. And now invite an intention that you have for the rest of this year. Just some seed you'd like to plant inside your heart right now. Invite it in. Don't make it a wish or something outside of you. Make it some state of mind or state of being, some aspect of yourself that you'd like to awaken for these remaining months of this year. And plant that seed in the fertile soil of your heart. Take a long, slow, deep breath in. And let go of your attachment to outcome. We've planted that seed. And when it feels comfortable, you can ever so gently open your eyes. Come back to us. Give your heart a nice massage. And welcome back.
It's beautiful. Thank you.
Gorgeous, soft and gentle.
Right?
Yeah.
So that was just for a few moments here, a few minutes. And meanwhile, we can carry that energy as we move throughout the day, no matter when we receive this. And so give yourself permission to do that, because you are so, you have the tool now. And if you didn't before, you have them now. And so we can continue to raise the vibration of the planet. Highest vibration always wins. So let's not worry about anybody else's low vibration.
Sure.
And when we find ourselves saying, oh, they have such a low vibration, we should probably just raise our own.
Thank you, David. That was
Thank
just
you, David,
beautiful.
so much. That was just great. Thank you so much for being a guest on our show and bringing a light to our space here. And stay on afterwards. We'll chat just a little bit afterwards. But thank you.
All right. I want to thank James and Kelly. Thank you so much for creating a platform for people to heal. And I know that you heal so many hearts, and that you guys you're doing the Lord's work at such a high vibrational level. And I'm so grateful for everyone who's part of this community. And thanks for showing up and for supporting James and Kelly. And thanks for, you didn't know that I was popping on here. So thanks for showing up and connecting to the stillness and silence with me. I'm so grateful.
Thank you. Thank you so
David.
much.
Thank you. Thanks,
James.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.